Hello, welcome back to Lick of the Week videos. This is another video in that series I'm calling Revisiting the Classics, where I'm going back and looking at some of these classic tunes that we all love to play on the banjo in this style, and just throwing out some new ideas, some improvisational tools you can use to kind of spice up your version, maybe get you out of a rut. So I'm assuming you can already play these songs. I've chosen Home Sweet Home and Drop C tuning, which we haven't covered as a tuning yet. So let's just jump right into the tune. I'm going to play the classic Earl version, which is based actually on Mac Woolbright's earlier version, which is, Mac was not a famous three-finger picker, but he was a two-finger player that played some amazing stuff on the banjo. So if you get a chance, look up Mac Woolbright on YouTube and you can hear his original version. Earl's version will be based on Mac's with three-finger rolls, so my version obviously is going to be based on Earl's. It's not a note-for-note transcription of Earl's original recording or anything, but it's based solely on his playing for the purposes of this video. So let's break it down. After I play it, we'll look at each section and I'll throw out some ideas for you to play around with. Our standard Earl version, which came from Mac Woolbright's version. Now, as I do in all these videos, I want to break this down by chords, so I need to stay in the camera shot here. So I'm just going to give you the chords in the song, in the progression, and then we'll identify the melody over that. C, F, back to C, then G7, back around to C. Everything repeats. C, F, C, back to G7, back around to C. So let's do it like this. Let's take the C to F to C section, which is this. And then we'll save the G7 for a little bit later in the video. So I want to take Earl's version and change it. But here's the thing now. Home Sweet Home is such a beautiful song that usually when I start to improvise over a melody like this, one that's so recognizable and so beautiful, I don't really want to destroy it. Because when you improvise, there's two ways to look at this. We could totally throw the melody out the window and just play cool C licks and F licks and any kind of lick that we like over the chords and say that's my solo. But you have totally dissolved the melody away. There's no melody left. I don't really like to do that, especially on my first pass at the tune. I might play a standard version, and then on a second solo I might, step out a little bit. And then maybe I could go hog wild later if it was like in a jam session somewhere where nobody really cared. But if I was performing this song, I would try to be pretty faithful to the melody. So the melody is on the first string. That's why Earl is basing his roll patterns on a backwards roll, so that you're starting with the first string. So the first string is your primary melody string. So if you want to stay true to the melody but improvise with rolls over the chords, make sure that you include the first string as the first note in your patterns, or somewhere close to the first note. You could syncopate and push it around a little bit. But folks need to hear those notes in your picking patterns. So I'm not going to tell you what rolls to play, but try to break away from all backwards. Now here's another thing about backwards rolls. They're not very natural for most players. So as bluegrass banjo players, we have looked at Earl's version and studied it and worked on it as hard as we can to try to play it like Earl, because it's technically challenging. But here's one thing I found about this version of the song. It's nearly impossible for people to break away from that because they've spent so much time trying to get this right like Earl. Of course, we'll never play it exactly like Earl, but we're basing it on Earl's version because it's so great. But what's not so great about this is that it can make you a slave to that version, because you try so hard to get those backwards rolls right and all these partials. So what I'm going to do is just throw the rolls out the window. One thing I like to do when I improvise, which might be hard for you to do, is to stop playing that standard Earl version, and I'll even stop playing rolls in places. Just to get a break from the backwards roll on the brain and to make myself try different things. So all I'm doing is, instead of rolling over the two F positions, I'm just going to pinch the Fs. And again, the first string is included in the pinch, so your brain picks up on those notes as melody. Now here, instead of playing the standard rolls, I'm going to substitute chords in here. It's like I did here. But I'm going to roll differently, not a backwards roll per se like we've been doing. 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 5. And then I'm going to pinch this. Now you might think, what are these chords? Well, that's E minor, and this is D minor, and it also can be considered a substitution of G6 and F6. And I don't want to get into any theory here, so let's don't even worry about it. You just take my word for it. You're playing a partial E minor, a partial D minor, and they're substituting as what we call major 6 chords here, which sweetens it up slightly. Now, the roll patterns you could use over this are endless. You can make up whatever you want, but I'm just going to try this modified roll, which still has the first string as my first note. For the beginning, 1, 3, 2, 1, 5. Now I'm going to go 3 with the thumb and then pinch. So I'm stopping the rolls. I'm going note, pinch. Now if I put this together in the context of the tune, then that gives me a new improvised section of the melody. Now let's go to the G7 section. These are transition notes. They're melody, but they actually are leading tones, I guess, that get you to the G7. And Earl's version of that is a roll in a really syncopated pinch pattern. What I want to do here is break away from that again. That's being replaced with. So I'm going to replace all these rolls again with chords. I'm going to go back and substitute all of this, G7, all those rolls in the standard. I'm going to use the E minor and the D minor as substitutions again. And again, those could also be called G6 and F6. Is replaced with this. Now what I'm doing here is just working that down, thumb pinch, thumb plays the third, fingers play 1 and 2 as a pinch. Thumb pinch, thumb pinch, thumb pinch. Now I can roll over that. And I'm substituting this melody note from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Now I need to get back to C. I'm just going to do this standard Scrooge transition lick, 3, 2, 1, 5 with a slide. And then I'm going to do some filler rolls to get me back to C. Now this sounds kind of convoluted, but actually it's just reusing these chord substitutions in a different way. So we're substituting this with this. Now I'm going to put this all together slowly. hopefully these ideas will spice up your versions, and probably, well, not probably, more than likely what's going to happen is you'll take some of these ideas, you'll start moving them around. You can push the substituted chords around in different places. You can not even do pinches with the substituted chords. You can try different rolls over them. You can reverse directions of notes, things. There's so many things that will actually become apparent to you once you start playing with these ideas that I won't even need to show you. So my goal is to spur you on to come up with some cool stuff on your own using what I just played. So I appreciate you watching the video. Be on the lookout for the B part in the next video in the series. And I appreciate you watching. Have a good one.